November 24, 1971. A man in a dark suit and tie, looking like just another businessman, walks up to the Northwest Orient Airlines counter in Portland, Oregon. He buys a one-way ticket to Seattle for $20 cash. He gives his name as Dan Cooper. He boards Flight 305, sits in seat 18C, orders a bourbon and soda, and lights a cigarette. Everything seems perfectly normal. But what happened next would become the only unsolved airline hijacking in American history, a mystery that has baffled the FBI and captivated the world for over 50 years. This is the incredible true story of D.B. Cooper. Shortly after takeoff, Cooper calmly handed a note to a flight attendant named Florence Schaffner. Thinking it was just another businessman's phone number, she dropped it into her purse. But Cooper leaned in and whispered, "Miss, you'd better look at that note. I have a bomb." Florence opened the note. In neat all-caps handwriting, it said he had a bomb in his briefcase. He then opened the case just enough for her to see a mess of wires and red sticks. His demands were clear: $200,000 in unmarked $20 bills, 4 parachutes, and a fuel truck standing by in Seattle to refuel the plane. The flight crew immediately alerted the authorities. On the ground, the FBI scrambled. This was not a typical hijacking. Most hijackers at the time were politically motivated, wanting to go to Cuba. This was different. This was a ransom demand. While the plane circled Puget Sound, the airline's president authorized the payment. FBI agents rushed to Seattle banks, gathering 10,000 $20 bills. They photographed every single bill, creating a record of the serial numbers. Meanwhile, on the plane, Cooper remained surprisingly calm. He ordered another bourbon, paid for it, and even tried to tip the flight attendant, who politely refused. He was described as quiet, thoughtful, and not at all nervous. When Flight 305 landed at Seattle-Tacoma Airport, Cooper's instructions were followed to the letter. The lights in the cabin were dimmed to prevent police snipers from getting a clear shot. An airline employee brought the money and the parachutes aboard. Cooper carefully inspected the cash and the chutes. Then, as promised, he released all 36 passengers and 2 of the flight attendants. He kept the pilot, co-pilot, a flight engineer, and 1 flight attendant on board. With the money and parachutes secured, he gave his next set of commands. He instructed the pilot to take off again, this time heading southeast towards Mexico City. His flight plan was oddly specific. He wanted the plane to fly below 10,000 feet, at a slow speed of under 200 miles per hour, with the landing gear down and the wing flaps at 15 degrees. This was a strange and dangerous configuration for a Boeing 727, but it was slow enough for a parachute jump. He also demanded that the rear air stair, a unique feature of the 727, be left unlocked and lowered in midair. The pilots warned him that this was incredibly risky, but Cooper was adamant. "No, it will be all right," he insisted. At approximately 7:40 p.m., the plane took off from Seattle. Only the 4 crew members and Cooper were left on board. As they flew into a dark, stormy night, Cooper told the remaining flight attendant to go into the cockpit and stay there. She did. That was the last time anyone ever saw him. Around 8 p.m., somewhere between Seattle and Reno, over the rugged, forested terrain of southwestern Washington, a warning light flashed in the cockpit. It indicated that the aft air stair had been opened. The pressure in the cabin changed slightly. The crew called back to him on the intercom. There was no answer. He was gone. The plane eventually landed safely in Reno, Nevada. FBI agents stormed the aircraft, but it was empty. All that was left behind were Cooper's black clip-on tie, a tie clip, and 2 of the 4 parachutes. The man known to the world as D.B. Cooper, name born from an early media. Miscommunication had jumped from a plane at 10,000 feet into a freezing rainstorm with $200,000 strapped to his body and vanished without a trace. The largest and longest manhunt in FBI history began immediately. For the next 45 years, the investigation, codenamed Noriak for Northwest Hijacking, would chase down thousands of leads. The FBI interviewed over 1,000 suspects. They searched the vast wilderness of the jump zone with helicopters and ground troops, but found nothing. No body, no parachute, no money. It was as if the man had simply evaporated into the night sky. The FBI created a detailed profile. He was likely a paratrooper or had Air Force experience, given his knowledge of parachutes and aerodynamics. His calm demeanor suggested he might be a veteran. He was thought to be in his mid-40s, around 6 feet tall. But this described countless men. Over the years, the case became a magnet for theories and confessions. Dozens of people came forward claiming to be D.B. Cooper, but they were all ruled out. The FBI investigated suspects ranging from disgruntled veterans to experienced skydivers, and even a man who had undergone gender reassignment surgery. One of the most promising suspects was a man named Richard McCoy Jr., a Vietnam vet and skydiver, who staged a similar copycat hijacking just 5 months after Cooper's. He was caught, but his physical description and methods didn't quite match, and he was later killed in a shootout with the FBI. The Bureau officially stated he was not their man. For 9 long years, the case went completely cold. It seemed like the perfect crime. Then, in February 1980, a miracle happened. An 8-year-old boy named Brian Ingram was digging a fire pit with his family on a sandy bank of the Columbia River, about 20 miles from the suspected jump zone. He unearthed 3 bundles of rotting cash. He and his family turned it over to the FBI. The agents checked the serial numbers. It was a perfect match. They had found $5,800 of D.B. Cooper's ransom money. The discovery reignited the investigation, but also deepened the mystery. The money was found far from the flight path. How did it get there? Was it washed downriver? Did Cooper bury it and plan to come back? The rubber bands were still around the bundles, suggesting they hadn't been loose in the water for long. Scientists analyzed diatoms on the bills and concluded the money had been deposited there in the spring after the hijacking. But this clue led nowhere. No other trace of Cooper or the remaining $194,000 was ever found. The Ingram family was eventually allowed to keep a portion of the discovered cash. As the decades passed, the legend of D.B. Cooper only grew. He became a folk hero, an anti-establishment icon who beat the system and got away. He inspired songs, books, movies, and even an annual festival in the small town of Ariel, Washington, near his presumed drop zone. The FBI, however, never gave up. They pursued new leads involving DNA technology, analyzing the saliva from the cigarette butts and the partial DNA profile recovered from his tie. But they could never find a match. Finally, in 2016, after 45 years of dead ends, the FBI announced it was officially closing the active investigation. They had exhausted all credible leads. The resources were being reallocated to other pressing cases. The Noriak file, containing over 60 volumes of information, was moved to the archives. The greatest unsolved mystery in American aviation history was officially left unsolved. The FBI statement concluded that while the case was no longer being actively investigated, they would review any new physical evidence of the parachutes or the money that might emerge. But the story doesn't end there. Even with the case closed, amateur sleuths and investigative journalists continue to dig. In 2024, new evidence surfaced from an independent scientific analysis of Cooper's tie. Using an electron microscope, a team of citizen scientists identified particles of a rare and specific titanium antimony alloy. In the 1970s, this material was used almost exclusively in a very specialized field, the manufacturing of cathode ray tubes for early computer monitors, particularly by a company called Tektronix, a major electronics firm based in Oregon. This suggests that Cooper might have been an engineer or a manager at this specific company, a high-tech facility just miles from where he boarded the plane. This new clue has pointed the finger at a handful of former Tektronix employees who fit the general description, but without a DNA match, it remains another tantalizing but unproven theory. So, what really happened to D.B. Cooper? Did he survive the jump and live out his days in quiet anonymity, a millionaire hiding in plain sight? Or did he perish in the unforgiving wilderness, his skeleton, and the rest of the money still lying undiscovered somewhere in the dense forests of the Pacific Northwest? One man, one parachute, $200,000, and a leap into legend. To this day, no one knows for sure. The mystery of D.B. Cooper endures, a perfect crime that has puzzled investigators and captured the public's imagination for half a century. Maybe he did get away with it. Maybe, just maybe, the truth is still out there. Thanks for watching our dive into this incredible mystery. If you think D.B. Cooper pulled it off, let us know in the comments. And if you love true stories like this, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next video. See you next time.